Hi, Daryl Ritchie, psychologist here. So clock's about a thousand. It's about 100 years old. It's considered to be an antique. It had gears on the inside and springs, so it didn't run on electricity. Two keys back here, one to wind up this ringer on the top and one to wind up the clock. And then it had two stems for setting the timer or the alarm and setting the time. Then on the top, this ringer had a stem on it that could turn the ringer on or off. So you'd set the time of the alarm for the time that you want to get up in the morning, but you did that right before you went to bed, because if you did it too early in the day, it would go off at the wrong time because it was just a 12-hour alarm clock. And then in the morning, when that thing went off, it would make an obnoxious noise because the ringer was really loud. And you'd wake up with a jolt, turn off the ringer, and then do what it told you to do. That was get up and start getting ready for the day. These were widely used in about the first third of my life, although I'm not 100 years old. I am getting some age on me with this old clock. But I did use these, and when that alarm would go off in the morning, I would turn it off, put my feet on the floor, head for the shower and a cup of coffee, because I was like the Tin Man without oil in the morning. It took me a bit to get going. But some people, it didn't wake up, amazingly. Or they would bury their head in the pillow, or they'd turn it off and it had no snooze on it, so they'd just go back to sleep. So I knew of people who would set the alarm off on a dresser someplace. Then when they woke up in the morning, they would have to get up and walk over and turn it off. But even at that, I knew of people who would bury their head or throw the pillow at the alarm, hoping that it would turn it off. Probably just created some collateral damage. Those old alarm clocks are kind of like emotions. Our emotions are intended to alert us to something that we need to attend to. And if managed correctly, we get the emotion, we attend to the thing, it gives us motivation and focus, and we turn off the emotion and then go on about our lives. In some cases, though, people don't turn the emotion off. They bury their head so they don't hear it. Men particularly are good at ignoring their emotions for long periods of time. Or it may be so intense that we get upset about the emotion itself and don't attend to it or use it for its intended purpose. Hans Selye, back in the 50s, a psychologist, learned that there is an activation that happens under stress, particularly, where the body puts out a bunch of hormones, the heart rate increases, blood sugar levels increase. That actually serves a good purpose in that it mobilizes the body for action. But if left unchecked, and if that goes on for a long time period, it can begin to break the body down and create unwanted changes. So there's a gastric element to that. A severe reaction to long-term stress would be irritable bowel syndrome, for example. Heart disease is very common. Ulcers, decreased lung capacity, eating disorders. Eating can really be self-soothing, but if done too much, used too much is the only strategy, of course, there's going to be obesity, weight gain. There are changes in the brain that happen as well. The part of the brain that particularly responds to threat is called the amygdala. And it can actually grow in size and dominate so that small stressors then create large reactions, and the emotional intensity is much greater than what is required to deal with that situation. Daniel Goleman in the 90s talked about emotional hijacking, called it the Amygdala Hijack. And you may have heard of his book on emotional intelligence. He said that there were probably 4 ways that we could begin to get that under control. The first one was to pay attention. That you had to attend to those emotions and do something with them. Second piece was to manage the emotion. The third part that he thought was really important was to understand the emotions of other people so that we didn't overreact to them and we could be more empathic. And then finally to be able to have the social skills to be able to deal with those people. So he had that 4-stage process. Another book that was put out in the 90s was called Mind Over Mood, and it was the idea that sometimes our mood gets over our mind, particularly with regard to those negative emotions like anger, anxiety, depression, guilt, trauma. And it uses a cognitive behavioral approach in a self-help sort of way, so you can fill out worksheets and try to get those emotions under control. This is not new information, though. Back in 3,500 years ago, the wise King Solomon, who with his God-given wisdom, said that the cheerful and joyful heart brings healing of both body and soul, but the crushed heart struggles with disease and depression. And that's the Passion Translation. Isaiah, 3,000 years ago, the prophet Isaiah gave a strategy for remedy. And he said that there would be a time when a leader would be coming and he would release a garment of praise in place of a spirit of heaviness. My interpretation of that would be to wrap yourself or cover yourself or engage in valuing God and creation as a replacement for depression. And Jesus referred to that passage, stating that that time had come. So that's a God gift that we can actually utilize. The New Testament also, in Philippians, talks about managing anxiety by placing your thoughts on things that are excellent and praiseworthy. And there's the admonition to deal with guilt appropriately. In the King James Version, it says, there's a godly sorrow that leads to repentance. The Daryl Ritchie version of that would be that there's a functional remorse that leads to effective behavior change, and then you can let go of that remorse. And then with regard to relationships and effective social interaction, that's been talked about again for thousands of years by the rabbis of the Old Testament through to the present, where Jesus even said that all the commandments can be wrapped up into just the phrasing, love God with everything you've got and love your neighbor as you love yourself. But reading about those things, doing self-help books and so on may not get the job done, because just passively understanding those things intellectually doesn't necessarily translate into effective change. So counseling may be in order. I'll put a link to my website in the description box. I provide online video and telephone counseling, so distance is not so much a matter. If you want to take a look at the website and see the services that I offer, you can. Also, all the references that I made in this video are on the resource page of that website. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, subscribe, share. Always love your comments. Thanks for watching.